growing up, it wasn't till I was in my second year at uni, and I'd obviously took a gap year and traveled and then had another year doing whatever. So I was in my second year, I was 21 or so, something like that. I don't know. But that was the first time I had ever even thought, and this like moment where I was like, starting a business is actually something that I could potentially do. And it hadn't been on my radar all through school growing up. It hadn't been on my radar like traveling, and it just wasn't something that I felt someone like me would do. I don't know if it's as a woman, someone from a small town, a small village, someone who isn't from an affluent background necessarily. You know, I haven't got millions of pounds in the bank just to start a business, because that's what rich people do. So I remember being at uni, they invited some alumni, and they were quite young, these guys. They're still going now at a company called Agent Marketing in Liverpool, and this guy called Paul came in and talked to us just like a normal person, and shared his story of how he started his business. And that genuinely like changed my life and changed my view, and it just opened this like door and went, you could do this. And then all of a sudden there were just all these opportunities and ideas. And that's why, you know, probably straight out of uni, for a year out of uni, I started my first business. And I think it's massively important to share stories to hopefully unlock that little door for someone else.
Oh, cool. So what was the first business?
So it was a job I invented, Steve. So I fell into networking by accident while I was at uni. I was doing some voluntary work at a company just to get something on my CV. And he took me along to a networking event. And it was my first experience of networking. No one had ever told me about it, and I'd never been warned about it. And I was a bit hungover at the time. It was the day after Valentine's Day. And Valentine's Day at uni when you were single was a great night out. So I was a little hungover. And he took me along to this networking event, which was like in a really nice bar. And he told us, you know, he said, don't tell them you're a student, you're the business development manager. And the company's called Milky Tea. It does CGI and animation, which I still to this day don't understand. And he was like, just talk to these like grown-ups in suits, these, you know, people that have got their lives together. And I was just given a name badge and told just to talk to them. And it was genuinely one of the most scariest things I've ever done. I hid in the toilets for most of the night. Didn't really speak to anybody, but I forced myself to go to another event, and eventually built up that courage to approach a stranger, because we were all told stranger danger, don't speak to them. And then we start, you know, going into the world of business, and we're expected to know how just to talk to them. Yeah, so I eventually built up the courage and spoke to someone, and then I just fell in love with networking. Like, the people that you're able to meet and get access to and chat to and learn from and hear their stories and hear their experiences and find out about their businesses. It was just, I just absolutely loved it. Anyway, I continued to network in Liverpool, and it was a massive part of the business culture there, going out and building relationships. And I found myself, when I was networking, introducing people and like matchmaking them and going like, oh, you should speak to this person, you should speak to this person. And I also found that I'd chat to people who like stood in the corner on their own and were just like, I hate these things. I don't like these networking events. I don't know what I'm doing here. Or they didn't have time to do it. They didn't have they weren't big enough as an organization to employ a business development manager to do networking as part of their role. So I thought, right, I'm good at networking. I enjoy it. I love it. I love matchmaking people. I could do this for a lot of different people instead of just for one business. So I created a business where I was a full-time networker. So I used to go to 5-6 events every day, Monday to Friday. Every day.
That's insane.
A lot. It was very early, but very late night as well. Didn't pay for food or wine for like a year. But I used to go to full-time networking on behalf of a number of different businesses. So I took on a company as a client. I'd only have one from each industry. And then I'd do a corporate analysis on their business. So I'd really get to understand and them as an organization, their product, services, target market, who they were looking to meet, but also their culture and what they were about as a business and the kind of people they wanted to engage with and connect with. And then while they cracked on doing their day job and doing what they loved to do, which was running their business, I'd be out doing all the legwork. I'd obviously pay for my memberships of networking organizations, and I'd go out to all the events and meet people. And then anyone that I met that would be useful or interesting for any of my clients to chat to, I'd make those introductions. So it means that they were having that pre-organized one-to-one. So it made it a lot more time efficient for them.
No, cool.
So that was the first business. And
so how old were you at the time?
I was maybe 22.
Wow.
23 maybe. Yeah, a lot of fun. I learned a lot, got to go to, because the more networking you do, as you know, the more events you get invited to, and then you get invited to events that aren't actual events. They're like the opening of a new restaurant or fashion shows, but it's still networking. And the more people you know, the more people want to know you. So it was a really exciting time, but it was after a year, that was all I could do. I didn't want to talk to anyone after a year. I was
honestly, it sounds like, it's hard graft going to these things. I still remember the first event I went to in the Northeast after I moved up was there's an organization called NOF Energy, or now it's just NOF, and they do offshore energy kind of stuff. And I still remember going to an event at the Sage in Gateshead, going in, didn't know anyone, like not a single person, sat down at a table, and then it was to actually say to the person on your left just hello, and actually make that first kind of And then what's funny, because the next time you go to one of these things, you already know someone, so you kind of latch onto them. And something that kind of relates to what you said is that most people they think that networks are like just big circles and you have big groups of people and you know lots of people, but most networks are actually like pyramids. So the people like you and me and some others that actually know a lot of people and actually connect a lot more. And one of the big things I always talk about is that if you can find the kind of really well-connected people, it can make a massive difference